All right, so tip number 1 is probably one of, if not the most important. Actually, scratch that. It's definitely the most important. If you take one thing out of all these tips I give you, just remember this one. That's why I'm giving it first. So that would be to get to know your area. This is the absolute most important thing because every area is so much different. I'm not even kidding you. Just a few areas that I have to dash in the place I live, Utah, each and every little area is so much different. And so there's different strategies for different areas. So this is kind of a 1B tip, but take anything you see on YouTube with pretty much a grain of salt. Now, maybe not quite a grain of salt, but understand that unless that specific YouTuber is actually in your area, then everything they say probably doesn't work in your area. Now, there might be a few things you can take from them or from me, but make sure you're getting to know your area for yourself, because then you can figure out a strategy that works best for you, because there's so many different opinions on what works, what doesn't work, what you should be doing, and all that stuff. So that's why I'm giving you the list of things that work in my area, and hopefully you can take some of them, apply it to your dashing, and improve your pay along the way. That's the whole goal with this. And by getting to know your area, I mean knowing what restaurants to accept orders to, knowing what your dollar per mile ratio should be, knowing the apartment complexes, knowing the specific areas within your area that are the most profitable, that are the busiest at certain times. All these things come into play because I can assure you, when I first started dashing, I didn't even know like a third of what I know now when it comes to all those things. So as you get to know your area better, as you dash more, as you log more hours, as you complete more deliveries, all these things will come, but it's the most important thing that you can possibly do when it comes to being a DoorDash driver. So tip number 2 that I have for you guys is only dash during peak hours, which is lunch and dinner. And I guess you could kind of throw in breakfast. Breakfast in my area is not the best, so I don't do it. But if you dash during the peak hours, you're actually maximizing the amount of money you can make. Now, it might suck that you have to work from 4 to 9 every night or 5 to 9 every night, but that's just the way it is when it comes to being a DoorDash driver if you want to make the most money possible. Now, obviously you could work a normal like 8 to 4 shift or something like that, but you're not going to be making as much money as you could had you just worked 11 to 2 or 4 to 9. Now, tip number 3 is break up your shifts. What I've learned over the years is that going for very long shifts makes it extremely hard to keep going. You usually burn out pretty quickly and you end up cutting your shift short because you're like, well, I've already been at it for 7 hours. Like, this sucks. My back's hurting and I'm sick of being in the car and all this stuff. So the best practice I've found is to just do the lunch shift and the dinner shift. That way you can get a nice 8-hour day in, but taking that break in between makes it a lot easier to go longer hours, and you're maximizing your profit as well because you're going during the busiest times of day. Tip number 4 I have for you guys is work weekends. Yes, this might suck, but it's super important if you want to maximize the amount of money you can make. I started doing this because I used to not really work weekends that much, but once I started working weekends and making the majority of my hours I worked on weekends, I saw a huge bump up in my pay. So yeah, it might suck. You might not want to work Friday nights, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, but honestly it's better to work like just 30 hours during the weekend rather than putting in 40 hours Monday through Thursday or Monday through Friday. You're gonna make more during the 30 hours you worked on weekends. I can almost guarantee it. Now again, remember, this is specific to my area. It might be different for you guys. Now the next tip number 5 is make sure you're dashing during peak pay. Now this might be hard for some people because unless you're a top dasher, you can't always get the shifts that you want. So maybe try being a top dasher and see if this helps you get those peak pay shifts. But it's really important to dash during peak pay, at least for me, because when there's peak pay, I'm making way better money than if there's not peak pay. Now I know sometimes peak pay can mean that there's way more dashers on the road, so sometimes it can actually backfire and you get less orders, but I would say 90% of the time you can make more money with peak pay. Now tip number 6 is don't waste time waiting. And this includes waiting for orders or waiting at restaurants. My rule of thumb for waiting at restaurants is I will wait 1 minute per dollar that I'm getting paid for the order. So if it's an $8 order, I'll wait up to 8 minutes for that order. So obviously the higher the payout, the longer I'm willing to wait. If it's like a $5 order, yeah, I'm really not going to be waiting that long for such a small order. And then on the flip side, when it comes to waiting on orders, you have to remember that time is money. And I don't care what anyone says out there, it's better to be making money consistently rather than having an extremely good dollar per mile ratio, like $3 per mile, and yet you're only making $15 an hour. That just doesn't sound worth it to me if I could be making $25 an hour with a $1 per mile ratio. So don't wait too long in between orders. If you have to accept a so-so order because it's during a slow time, then do it, because honestly, you just want to keep busy, you want to keep moving, and you want to keep getting orders done, because that's how you make money. Tip number 7 is don't let miles scare you. Some people worry a lot about how many miles the order is. I like to think of it as how quickly can I get this order done? Because I know my area so well, I know how long it's going to take me to drive to pick up that order and how long it's going to take me to drive from the restaurant to the delivery location. So I like to go off dollars per hour I can make. And you have to pay attention to how many miles are freeway miles, how many are street miles, what the traffic is like, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And so honestly, if you want to know more information on accepting orders, then I have a video for you can check out. The link will be down in the description. There's going to be a couple of videos down there that go into more depth on some of these tips. So if you're interested, check out those links after the video. All right, tip number 8 is extremely important. And I did not learn this for like my first year or two of working for DoorDash. And this would be to save your money. It is so important to save money for taxes and for car expenses. I have separate accounts for car maintenance, car repairs, anything like that, and I put away 5% of everything I make towards that account. And the next thing is taxes. Try your best to figure out how much you're going to be paying in taxes and set that money aside every single time you cash out or get paid from DoorDash. Because when tax season hits or when something goes out on your car and you don't have any money saved up, now you're out of work or you have to pay a huge tax bill that you don't have money for. So please just save money, because it is so important that you don't get screwed over when one of these things happens. Now the next tip, tip number 9, is control things that you can control. Now there's very few things you can actually control when it comes to DoorDash, so it's best to be focusing on the things you actually can control. You can't control the orders DoorDash is sending you. You can't control how busy it is. You can't control how long a restaurant is going to take to make the food. You can't control the traffic. You can't control so many things. So it's best to focus on your hustle and your strategy. Now your strategy you should be planning out before you even go out on your shift. You need to figure out what time of day you're going out, what day of the week it is. Set your strategy and figure out, okay, it's the slowest day of the week today, so this is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be less selective and I'm just going to try and keep going. But if you're going on a Saturday night, then you need to think, okay, so it's Saturday night, there's going to be a lot of big orders out there. I can be more picky with the orders I'm deciding to choose to accept and all that stuff. And then you really can control how fast you're going. You get to decide how quickly you run into that restaurant, how assertive you are when it comes to that restaurant, how quickly you're finding the person's house, how quickly you're running up, taking that picture, and going back into your car to receive your next order. And I promise you, if you could shave off like 1 to 2 minutes on every single order, then you can end up making quite a bit more money for your shift. Tip number 10 is take things seriously. This is a real job where you make real money, so act like it. I like to dress fairly nice. I mean, not like nice, but I like to be cleaned up, be wearing what I would actually wear to go do something, like go out to eat or go hang out with friends or go do certain things. Just look presentable. It's gonna make you feel better rather than going out, you're not showered, you're wearing a huge baggy hoodie, you're wearing huge baggy sweats, and you just kind of feel bummy all day. But if you try to look nice, you do your best to kind of clean up, then I feel like it can boost your mood. It can help you keep going. Some days I like to dress even nicer because then I feel actually more motivated to make money, because I'm like, this is actually a real job. And so another thing is to keep the area you're working in nice, which would be your car. Don't let your car get super messy. And sometimes I do have a problem with this, but try to keep it as clean as possible. First of all, I don't want someone delivering my food in a dirty car. That just doesn't sound very appealing. So that's first off. And then second off, when my car's clean, it seems like it's easier for me to do things faster. Things get less stressful. And especially when you have multiple orders, it's easier to have them in your car rather than trying to clean up a bunch of stuff you have sitting in your passenger seat or something like that. So I found that to be really helpful. Tip number 11 is don't be afraid to buy things that help you be more efficient. These are things like car accessories, even like food while you're out and about, different hot bags maybe, cup holders maybe. There's a ton of different things you can buy that can help you be more efficient, and even just shaving a couple minutes off of each order can definitely increase your pay. So anything to help you be more organized or help you on your daily dash definitely comes in handy. So it's best to just pay the money up front and you'll be able to recoup that money because you'll be able to be more efficient. Now tip number 12 is don't take orders that take you out of your zone. I used to do do this a ton because I would see an order that was like $15 for 10 miles and I would decide to do it. But those 10 miles took me so far out of my zone that I had to drive 10 miles back into my zone, and it ended up not being worth it. So the best practice with this one is think about the time it's going to take you to deliver that order and get back into your zone. If the dollars per hour work out in your favor, like say it's a $29 order taking you 16 miles out of your zone, but you know it's only going to take you 20 minutes there, 20 minutes back, that's 40 minutes and you just made $29. So that would be an order that's worth it. So there are a few exceptions when it comes to if you should take an order that takes you outside of your zone, but I'd say 90% of the time it's most likely not worth it. Tip number 13 is when you're accepting orders, make sure you're looking at the drop-off location. Drop-off location is one of the biggest things that matters when accepting orders. Again, if you want a higher explanation on what orders to accept, you can check out the videos down in the description. But the reason drop-off location matters so much is because it can really determine if the order is good or not. If the drop-off location is in a good area where you can get orders right off the bat, then it's usually a pretty good order. But if that specific order takes you to a place where you're gonna have to drive into an area to get orders after that drop off, it might not be the best. That's why a lot of people like to say a 5-mile order is really 10 miles because you have to drive back into your area. But I just don't necessarily think that's true, because if you drive the 5 miles, drop off the order, and then get another order right after that, then you didn't have to drive any more miles. So just remember that. Tip number 14 is apply different strategies to different times of day and different times of the week. You don't want to go out every single day and just do the exact same thing, because then you're either going to be losing money on the weekends when it's busier, or you're going to be losing money during the dinner shifts because it's busier. Or if you always use the same strategy for the busy times as you do on the slow times, then you're going to be missing out on money during the slow times because you can't use the same strategy for both. And let me explain a little bit further. So my strategy during the slow times or during the slow days is going to be move extra quick, be less selective with the orders I'm doing, and try to get as many orders done throughout the hours as possible. Now what I mean by that is if I have to take a $4 order for 2 miles, then I'm going to do it, because if I can get 5 orders done that are $4 to $5 each, now I'm making $20 to $25 that hour. So that's completely different than my strategy when it comes to the weekends or certain dinner shifts, because then I know there's going to be a lot of big orders out there. I'm going to be more selective. I'm going to wait for the nice orders because I have a constant flow of good orders coming through, and I can be extra selective. And I don't have to worry too much if I decline an order that I'm not going to receive a good one the next time around. So just keep that in mind because it's super important, making the most money possible as consistently as possible. Now the next tip, tip number 15, is don't speed. It's just not worth it. I learned this a while ago when I got pulled over for speeding twice in like a matter of a couple months when I was door dashing. And if you get pulled over for speeding, there goes your entire day's worth of money that you just worked to earn. So just stay within the speed limit. Don't go too crazy. It's really not going to make that much of a difference if you're going 10 over the speed limit or 5 over the speed limit. You're probably going to get to the person's house or to the restaurant at around the same time anyway. So just don't do it. Tip number 16 is be vocal at restaurants. You don't just want to walk in there and start standing around and hoping that magically a worker comes up and talks to you, asks you what your order is, and happens to have the order ready. You want to go in there, you want to be determined, you want to go up to the first worker you see, you want to say, hey, I have a DoorDash pickup, and then if they say, oh, it'll be a couple minutes, ask them to expand on that. Say, okay, can you give me an estimated time on how long that's going to be? And then usually they're pretty good about it, and it can help you determine whether or not you actually want to wait on that order, or if you want to unassign it and move on with your day. So make sure you be assertive when you walk into restaurants. Tip number 17 is read the order instructions. This is so important because if you're not paying attention and you're not reading those drop-off instructions, you can find yourself in a world of trouble, and it ends up taking way longer than it should have if you had just read the instructions. Like if you need to take the order to a side door, or if you need to take the order to a specific place, or maybe it tells you an easier way to get to a certain apartment, or different things like that that are definitely going to help you get the order done quickly. So make sure you're paying attention to that right off the bat, right when you pick it up from the restaurant. Be reading those instructions and being like, okay, that's what I gotta do, that's what I gotta do, that's what I gotta do. So then when you get there, you can just get it done. Now, tip number 18 I have for you guys is don't be afraid to test out different strategies. There's a bunch of different strategies when it comes to DoorDash. There's like decline now, there's cherry picking, there's top dasher, there's really a bunch of different ones. You could go based off of dollar per mile ratio, dollars per hour, just a whole bunch of different things. And so it's best to try out all of them because you never know what could work for your specific area. For my specific area, being a top dasher is the best strategy I've found. I'm making the most money that I ever have right now. I used to cherry pick and I was actually making less in my area. So it's best to just figure out what works for you. Maybe cherry picking is the best strategy in your area and you wouldn't know if you were trying to be a top dasher every month. So it's best to just take a few months, try different strategies for a couple weeks on end, see what works out for you, so then you can know what's best for you in your specific market. Now, tip number 19 is always be learning. I like to be learning constantly when it comes to DoorDash, and if I can just get 1% better every week over the span of a few months, I notice that I'm honestly making a couple dollars more per hour. This is how it's been for me my entire DoorDash career. Like the 4 years I've been going, I've always tried to get a little bit better, test things out, learn from my mistakes, and I'm making more money now than I ever thought was possible back when I first started in 2018. So just try and get better each and every week, each and every day, each and every month, and it should boost up your pay over time. Now, last but not least, the final tip I have for you guys, which is probably the most important one I can give you, is that this is not a career. I personally feel like you should not have DoorDash as your only job or as your only income because it's extremely unpredictable and you never know what could happen. I've been deactivated from DoorDash wrongly on 3 separate occasions, but I've been doing this for 4 years now and I've seen a lot of crazy stuff. And another thing is that you're not making as much as you think you're making when it comes to DoorDash because you're putting wear and tear on your car, because you're having to pay those taxes. And so your net profit that you're actually making is around $15 per hour, I would say, on a pretty decent day. And I don't know how long some of you guys can live off of that income. So I've always worked another job alongside of DoorDash the entire time I've been doing it. I was a general manager at Taco Bell and I was doing DoorDash on the side. Then I transitioned into real estate and I was doing DoorDash part-time with that as well. And then I found YouTube, and obviously I do YouTube and DoorDash at the same time, and those are my main sources of income. But I think DoorDash is the best thing for entrepreneurs who are trying to start something, who are trying to get something going outside of DoorDash, or even people that have a career elsewhere and just want to make some extra cash on the side. DoorDash is great for that as well. But as far as a career goes, DoorDash is probably not your best bet. That's why personally, I feel like we make plenty of money when it comes to DoorDash drivers, because you can really make anywhere from like $16 to $30 an hour. And for a part-time job that has no barrier to entry, I think it's the best job out there that you can get. So there you guys have it. Those are the 20 things that I learned to go from making about $15 an hour to anywhere from $25 to $30 an hour like I am now. So if you learned something, make sure you subscribe, and also remember those links to further explanations to some of the tips I gave in this video are down below in the description, and I'll see you guys next time.